Exploring the countryside has been going on for many thousands of years. In Britain we've got a unique system of public footpaths, over 140,000 miles of them. And added to that, we've got 3.5 million acres of newly designated open access land.
We're in the heart of Wales, in southern Snowdonia, and we're following the River Mowddach from its source high on the moors down to the sea at Barmouth. It's about 22 miles, and we're following it as closely as we can on public footpaths and bridleways.
This programme is all about walking and how to go about it. Exploring the countryside, it's exciting, it's challenging, and it's even free. We ask you to join with us as we go to see how the great British countryside and its people tick. This is Off the Beaten Track.
Well, it's raining, and if you've ever done any walking, you will know that you have to take the good with the bad. This particular walk takes us across some new open access land. This land wasn't available to walk on until the Countryside and Rights of Way Act came into force in the year 2000.
So open access land now makes it possible for the first time to start the walk from the actual source of the River Mowddach, which is high on the remote moors.
People haven't realised how much more land is now available to walk on. But it is often hard walking on open access land because there may not be a path to follow. So it is important to be very good at map reading and to be able to use a compass and have up-to-date maps, particularly in bad weather. Open access land is usually high ground, often moorland, and is marked on the new Explorer maps. The moors are a challenging start to the walk, but it is worth going onto the moors for the experience of being in such a quiet and remote place. Back in July 2001, this area suffered the worst thunderstorm for hundreds of years. And the volume of water that came down this river was so large that it swept away most of the bridges in the area. And it actually did a huge amount of damage.
They've done a wonderful job of renovating them, haven't they?
Yeah, this bridge was more or less destroyed and it's all been rebuilt, and it's been rebuilt in local stone. It looks lovely.
It's really beautiful, isn't it? Yeah.
It wasn't just the bridges that suffered in the floods. Many people in the area have a story to tell. Farmers lost livestock, sheep and cattle were washed away, fences and stone walls were swept away as well, and even pets. I did hear of a poor dog still attached to its kennel, and it was swept out to sea and never seen again. Walking through this area on a day like today really helps you to understand the power of the weather. The river is pretty swollen, and it's hard to imagine it being a further 10 feet higher. I think it must have been really frightening for people living close by.
From the map we can see there's a small village ahead called Pont Abergeiru. The little black cross indicates a church, although around here it's more likely to be a Methodist chapel. Beyond the isolated settlement lie the woods of Cody Brennan.
Well, the weather is a little bit poor today, but the countryside around here is still beautiful. We're going to be exploring some of the most beautiful parts of Britain using Ordnance Survey maps. We're going to be walking on public footpaths, bridleways, byways and some open access land.
Public footpaths allow you to get off the tarmac and into the countryside. And for example, you've got as much right to walk on a public footpath as you have on a road.
To be sure that you're actually walking in the right place, you need a map at the right scale. And for this, you need the Ordnance Survey Outdoor Leisure Explorer Series. And these maps are at a scale of 1 to 25,000. This means that for every 2.5 inches on the map, you walk 1 mile on the ground.
Which is an easy thing to remember because my 3 fingers are exactly 1 mile on the map.
Another thing to remember, if you haven't got fingers the same width as Ian, is that the grid lines are exactly 1 kilometre wide apart, and they're all over the map. So look for those and you'll be able to estimate the length of your route.
Maps have got a lot more friendly lately, and when you go on holiday, make sure it's the first thing you buy, and you can soon discover all its secrets. Where are we now on the map?
Just here, we're on this footpath here, so we're going to walk over this bridge, up there through the gate.
Okay, I'll just have my tea and then we'll move off, shall we? Okay.
Yeah, I hope the weather picks up.
I'm sure it will. We're just walking off the moorlands now and down into farmland. The character of the landscape's really changed, and shortly we'll be going through forest as well.
One thing, Ian, looking at this track, it's really sunken down into the landscape. I think it's a very, very ancient route, actually.
Yeah, it's easy to see where the footpath goes, isn't it?
It is. Yes.
Excuse me, please.
These paths are here because many generations of farmers have worked the land. And it's worth remembering that even today, many of these paths still cross working landscapes.
So leave gates as you find them, and make sure you keep to the correct line of the path. It will go down pretty well with the farmer.
We usually find that farmers are pretty keen to have a chat, especially if it's about the weather. The Welsh landscape today reflects centuries of stock grazing, and the old stone walls are usually maintained as field boundaries. But importantly, the walls also provide shelter for sheep in bad weather.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks.
Yes. Come far?
Well, we have. We've come right off the top. We've come right off the top of the moors.
Have you?
Yes.
We're going down to Barmer. So. It's a beautiful view you've got out of your farmhouse, isn't it? Fantastic.
It's quite nice. Yes.
Yeah. Have you lived here very long?
Well, I've been here 51 years, and my father was before me, and my uncle before that. So
Oh, wonderful.
Gosh.
the family's been here since 1937, I think.
All right. The footpath, does it go right by the house, does it?
Yes, it goes down here and down to the backwards. And,
Yeah, because we often feel a little bit awkward walking right past farmhouses, because I'm sure that you don't like people walking past too often.
well, it's not so bad if people know where they're going. If they're marked properly, you know, they sort of keep on going. Because when they're not sure where they're going, it's people start turning around and looking round. So.
Well, I always check the map before I go through the farmyard, check we're on the right path.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, not everybody does that.
No, no. Is it a good living in farming these days?
No, it's a way of life. I'm afraid. It's the price, everything that we buy in's gone up, and the prices of lamb's gone down. We were having more money from 20 years ago than we have
Oh
today.
dear.
So,
Amazing.
you know.
Can you diversify and do anything different up here?
Yes, we have tried diversifying a little bit. You know, sort of ponds and maybe a bit of fish in them. But we've got the otter coming up here now. And,
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
nice to see them. But there again, if you try to diversify into something like fish, you got that added problem.
Yeah,
Really, you know,
yeah.
So
Well, we're hoping the weather improves. We're going down to Barmouth. Do you think it will?
it might, because as you're going down, you get better weather usually. But,
Oh, very good.
hopefully we can send some of it back here because we can do with some dry weather.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
And you.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Thanks for your
Take care.
time.
Bye.
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 What's intriguing about this route is that it's not just farming that shaped the landscape. Other industries are evident, such as mining and particularly gold mining.
Well, it's very exciting now because we've actually reached the first gold mine on our walk. We're standing by the main entrance to the Gwynfineth gold mine, and this was a very active and productive gold mine in the 1980s.
And the footpath actually runs right through the mine. And it closed in the mid-1990s after it had been opened as a tourist attraction for a short time, didn't it?
Not all the mines were originally gold mines. In fact, gold was accidentally discovered. They were mining for other metals at the time, such as copper, lead and silver. The first gold find was in 1844, and the area became famous and attracted prospectors from all around the world, and it was known after that as the Dolgellau Gold Belt. Of course, many of the prospectors lived very, very poorly because only one or two mines made any significant profit. Despite the power and ferocity of the river today, it is still very vulnerable. Mining in the past has affected the water quality and wildlife within the river. Thankfully, the river is healthy again now. Earlier in the week, we met up with Keith Scriven from the Environment Agency at the Mouthac Salmon Hatchery, where a small dedicated team are working to improve salmon stocks in the rivers around the UK. We were also surprised to discover that they are working on an exciting project to preserve an endangered species. So why is the salmon hatchery here, Keith?
Well, this hatchery was set up in 1987. We've been working for 20 years now, following a major fish kill from a pollution on the River Mouthac in 1984. This killed 2,000 adult salmon and sea trout that were in the river at the time. So from that we set up a trust fund and built the hatchery.
So how does the hatchery actually work? How does it breed the salmon?
Well, what we do here is we bring adult salmon and sea trout in from the wild every autumn from various rivers, and we strip the eggs from these fish and we put the eggs down in the trays in the hatchery, and then we rear all these fish on to certain sizes and release them back to the rivers where they came from.
How big are they when you release them back into the river?
They're about, the fed fry are about 2 inches long and the smolts are about 6 to 8 inches.
So which rivers do they go back to?
Well, a lot of the fish go back into the Mouthac catchment. We also stock other rivers in Wales, and we also do some fish for the Thames.
Have you got any other projects?
We have a very, very interesting project we've just started a couple of years ago. It's a freshwater pearl mussel project, so if you'd like to come over here, I'll show you some of these mussels.
Brilliant.
These are enormous mussels, Keith. What species are they?
This is the freshwater pearl mussel, which is found in most of Northern Europe's rivers, or was at one time. It's now a listed endangered species and extinct in most of the European rivers.
Really?
I think I'm right in saying we have just 23 rivers in England and Wales have still got small populations.
How old are these mussels?
Well, these mussels are possibly 80 to 100 years old. And these come from a river in North Wales, where about 100 years ago they would be taking 100,000 or more out of the river every year just to find a pearl mussel. And you'd only find 1 in 500 mussels that would have a pearl. So they were basically thrown on the bank.
Did they eat them?
No, they weren't used for food, it's just purely for the pearl mussel.
And so why are you actually breeding the mussels here at a salmon hatchery?
The reason we're doing it here is because their life cycle is linked to the salmon life cycle. Each autumn they release young mussel larvae, millions and millions, into the river, and these mussel larvae need to get onto the gills of the salmon in the rivers. And obviously we've got large numbers of fish at the hatchery, so when they release the larvae, hopefully we can infect our fish with these larvae.
And that's what you've been doing, is it?
And that's what we've been doing for 2 years, and so far we've produced about 70,000 juvenile mussels from 3 different river species.
It's an amazing story.
Could we have a look at one actually? Could you pull one out?
Yeah, I'll lift one out.
Oh,
There you can
wow.
see its foot, which is how it angles itself to the riverbed and how it moves around.
That's a very old one, is it?
That's a pretty old mussel. It's about as big a freshwater pearl mussel as you'll see in the United Kingdom.
So how old do you think it is?
It'll be getting on for 100 years.
Amazing.
Are these scales to do with the data?
These are growth rings, yeah.
Like a tree?
Yeah. These are growth rings, showing how old it is.
Oh, it's a fascinating story.
It is, isn't it?
Salmon are such strong swimmers, and I wonder if they can make it this far up the river. If you look carefully, you can still see evidence of the 2001 flood. This bridge was almost completely destroyed, with trees and debris piling up against it. These centuries-old bridges were very well built because this one wasn't totally swept away.
We are now in the spectacular Coed y Brenin Forest, which is a Forestry Commission woodland. It's also a world-famous mountain biking destination, with many different routes winding through the forest. There is a brand new visitor centre here and plenty of opportunity for short, easy walks along the forest tracks and paths. There are some spectacularly tall trees too, and the forest provides some really good wildlife watching. If you're very lucky, you might see a red squirrel and possibly a pine marten.
Well, the rain does have its advantages. What a spectacular sight. With so much water coming down that waterfall, we could feel it through our feet. Do you know what, Juliet? The weather is actually clearing up. I think we need our sun hats on soon.
That farmer was right then, like you said.
He was.
At Llanethdyd, the river becomes affected by the sea's tides, and in the 1800s there was a thriving shipbuilding industry on the banks of the River Mouthach near to the village.
This is of particular interest to me because my family comes from Connors Quay in Wales, where we were ship owners at one time. My great-grandfather owned and built the Kathleen and May, a three-masted schooner that's still sailing today.
The footpath's been blocked here.
Oh yes. If you're on a public footpath in the countryside and you come across a path that's blocked, it might be a farmer that's just moving some stock, or maybe he's shearing sheep or something. But if you do, you've got a perfect right to make the shortest diversion possible around the obstruction.
If you want to report the obstruction to the local authority, just make sure that you are in the right place and that you are actually on the line of the footpath before you make an official report.
Yeah, but I think somebody's just been messing about, because that's never going to hold any stock in, is it?
The route climbs steeply from Llanethdyd up to the new Precipice Walk and another extensive mining area, where there are magnificent views over the Cadair Idris range.
If you're not keen on steep climbs, then make sure you check the map carefully for tightly packed contour lines which indicate steep ground. Checking the map beforehand gives you the opportunity to plan an easier route to avoid the climb, since after all, walking is about enjoying yourself. Otherwise, take your time and have plenty of rests. Stop and admire the views, or listen to the birdsong, or the wind in the trees. And when you get to the top of the climb, the views are usually worth all the effort. The wildflowers have been lovely all the way down this hill. We've had one of the bell heathers, and this is stone crop, one of the many stone crops, and that's mountain thyme.
The scent of it's beautiful, isn't it?
It's gorgeous, isn't it?
Yeah.
The new Precipice Walk provides one of the world's best views, in my opinion. We're looking westwards down the Mouthach estuary out towards Cardigan Bay, while to the south the long majestic ridge of the Cadair Idris range will tempt us back another day. Far below, the Mouthach twists and turns before narrowing under the beautiful black and white wooden toll bridge at Penmine Pool.
Oh, just look at the views, Ian. They're absolutely stunning. Wonderful. And look over there, there's the town of Dolgellau. Can you see it? It's a beautiful place.
What's interesting about Dolgellau is that they didn't settle on its name till the 1950s. When the railway station closed, they had 3 signs up at the same time, 3 different spellings of the name.
The path here is almost totally flat because this was a mining track. We're walking to the end of it now to meet up with George Hall, who is an expert on the local mines.
We've just been walking down the track here. We've passed loads of gold mines, George. Why is there so much gold in this area particularly?
Well, if you've been looking around and looking at your map, you'll probably see that they're actually in a sort of belt about a mile wide,
Yes,
coming down the Moudach and then right round here. Now we can see here why that is, because if you look up at the mountains, you can see Diffwys there, and you can probably make out the way the rocks are sloping to the south. And we're on the south side of the geological structure known as the Arlec Dome. And if you look across this little next hill, you'll see those rather green fields there, and they are fertile because they're on the outcrop of a rather soft black mineralised shale, which makes a fairly good soil. But also, that's if you get a quartz vein cutting through that shale, that's when it contains gold, or may contain gold. And in fact, that hillside opposite is called Clogau Mountain. And the Clogau gold mine, which has been the most productive found around here, is just over the top. The peculiarity of the gold mines around here compared with most districts is that nearly all the gold is found in quite small veins. You may have a lot of quartz, but you've only got a little narrow vein, but that can be absolutely full of gold. So that you can get 10 or 20,000 ounces in a space about as big as a room. So when you strike a bonanza, you make a lot of money for a while, and then it disappears again. So you have to go on searching.
Well, can we go and have a bit of a closer look at them?
Oh yes, by all means.
Hang on. Well, George, I can't believe we're actually standing in a real live gold mine.
Well, we are indeed at the entrance to an adit, what a miner calls an adit. That's a drainage tunnel. I mean, this hillside is actually covered with workings, and these mines where we are now were worked for lead originally, but they discovered a vein of gold actually a bit lower down in 1853.
1853.
And then they obviously explored the whole hillside, and above us there's a big vein of quartz sticking out above the surface with a lot of mineral in it. And they drove this, what a miner would call an adit, as a drainage level to get it at greater depth and let the water out.
So when exactly were the gold mines started around here?
The first discovery of gold, of which we've got record, was made in 1844 at Cumesian, that's up near Gwynfinith.
Yes.
But nobody took it seriously. I mean, in those days we were one of the biggest mining countries in the world, from tin and copper and lead, but nobody mined gold, so they thought it was a joke.
Right.
But you see, then in 1848, Sutter found gold in California, and 49 gold rush, then the gold rush to Australia in 1851, and people thought, oh well, wait a minute, maybe there is gold in this part of the world. And then at about the same time, they discovered rich gold at Clogau, which I mentioned to you, Prince of Wales down the bottom here, and there's another mine called Dolfrenog. And there was for a few months, there was a tremendous excitement.
Is it a skilled job mining for gold?
No, it's an arduous job, if you like. I mean, you might say it requires more luck than skill. I mean, we've got a pretty good idea geologically whereabouts the gold is, but actually finding a bunch of gold, you really got to keep your fingers crossed and hope for the best. And of course, driving tunnels is quite an expensive game, especially nowadays.
You found it yourself, didn't you?
Yes, we found it.
What was it like? Did you celebrate?
Well, yes, we did, as a matter of fact. The proprietor said, take them down to the hotel in the Golden Lion in Dolgethley and buy as much drink as you want. And I was persuaded to take a taxi home. And I got to the hotel, they said, are you sure you're all right? I said, well, I feel all right.
I've just discovered gold. Wonderful.
Oh, I found something I thought might have been gold in the river the other day, but I've got a feeling it probably isn't gold.
Well, I'm afraid I'll have to tell you that is what mineralogists would call iron porites. A lot of people do call fool's gold. It's not actually the real thing, I'm sorry.
Even though it looks like it.
Well, it does look quite like it, but gold is different, as we'll see.
Looks like I'm buying again in the pub tonight then, does it? This is the common nettle. Everybody has nettles in their garden, and it's a really important plant for wildlife. Over 40 species of insect rely on it to live. There's actually a National Nettle Week, and you can eat it either cooked or raw. You pick them quickly and you fold them up, mind your lips. Yummy, really nice. But it always grows where we've had human habitation because it likes the organic soil. Well, that's nice. Fancy a bit of nettle at all?
No, thank you. What's it taste like?
Lovely. We've taken a detour from our planned route down to Penman Pool. This magnificent wooden toll bridge was first opened in 1879 and is privately owned. There's a small charge to cross it on foot. And we're crossing it to meet up with the Snowdonia National Park Warden Rhys Gwynn on the Mouthat Trail. Today the Mouthat Trail provides a beautiful route for walkers and cyclists between Dolgellau and Barmouth.
We've just walked over Penman Pool Bridge. We've walked through the woods and we've come down off the new precipice walk, which is high up there on the very top. You can just see the footpath as a line running across the top of the hill from left to right.
You can see the orange spoil, can't you, from the gold lines?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. It's a long way.
I wonder we had such stunning views.
We started our walk high on the moors, up behind Pont Abergeiru, and it's a huge flat moor, but I couldn't pronounce the name of it on the map.
Yes, well that's Waun the Gria Volen, which is
It's just music, that's wonderful.
It is. It's
Poetry.
yes, it
What's
is.
that mean?
Well, it's the moor of the rowan tree. I don't think there are that many rowans up there at the moment, but it's still quite a common tree on the uplands around here.
Beautiful area.
It is a very desolate area.
Totally different to here.
It is, yeah. It's very important for natural history in its own right. But this area has other characteristics which make it equally as important.
Why is this valley so special for wildlife?
Well, the main thing, I suppose, really is the range of habitats that you get down here. It's still a fairly intact system of habitats joined together, which from the wildlife point of view makes it ideal for a range of different species then.
I have heard that there are otters around here. Is that true?
Yeah, there are. Yeah, it's a very good valley for breeding otters, and these sort of reed beds that we see in front of us here are ideal habitats for them, where they can lie up quietly during the day without being disturbed.
Is there two sorts of otters, a sea otter and a freshwater otter?
Well, no, to be honest, I think in this country the otters that you get on this sort of river system, they will obviously go into freshwater systems around here, but they'll be down at the sea as well. And they'll travel quite considerable distances. We've analysed spraints quite away from the seashore, but you still get fish bones and bits of mollusk from there, even as high up as the foothills of Cadair Idris. So they go up and down these river systems. We'd find it very difficult to travel like that, but for them, obviously, on the river, it's no problem at all.
Well, I have never seen an otter in my whole life, but I do believe you can find clues to their existence or presence in the area.
Yeah, certainly, yes. If you know where to look, they tend to put spraints down quite regularly as territory markers.
Which is a posh word for poo.
That's right, that's right. And
I've never even found any of that.
Well, there we are. Well, under these sort of bridges and drainage ditches, they're good spots to have a look, certainly.
Could we go and have a look for
Yeah,
something?
sure, yeah. We'll go to the next bridge along, I think. Yeah.
Brilliant,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
After 10 minutes searching, we found no evidence of otters.
Will I ever get to see an otter?
You do know they're nocturnal, don't you?
The footpath here follows the very edge of the water. We're walking along the Mouthac estuary, and this is a public footpath, but it's one that you can't get along at all times of day.
Because at high tide, the path is blocked by these rocks down here.
And also, if you want to check where the tide comes to inland, it's usually marked on an Ordnance Survey map by the letters NTL, which mean the normal tidal limit.
Yeah. Leaving the estuary behind, the steep climb from Bonthe follows a magical footpath through an enchanting gorge past gold mining relics hidden in the undergrowth.
After the long steep climb at the end of the road, we level off and head westward towards Barmouth. We're about halfway up the southern end of the Great Rhinog mountain range. The village of Bonthe lies far below, and it's hard to believe that in the 18th and 19th centuries this was a coach road to Harloch. Horse-drawn coaches cross this wild, high mountainous area, with the highest point of the coach road at about 2,000 feet. It must have been a terribly hard journey in the winter. The Rhinog Range provides some of the most inhospitable terrain in the whole of Wales. It's tough, hard walking on or off the paths, over rough grits and through marshes and bogs.
Luckily, our route steers well clear of these areas.
Well, we've just joined an old drover's road. This one actually comes over the top of the mountain near us from Harloch on its way down to Dolgellau, and it winds its way across the hills and through the fields, often between two stone walls supposed to keep the animals in. And we're standing by a very, very old stone, and it is thought that this stone could date back to the Roman times, but apparently the carving on it, which says from Harloch, is much later on. It's amazing, isn't it? It's a beautiful stone.
Fabulous. These drovers were really talented people, because if they drove the cattle too hard, the cattle would lose condition. And also they used to protect the cattle's feet by shoeing them, and the pigs, they made little shoes for their feet made out of leather. And the ducks and the geese, they drive them through hot tar and sand to protect their feet. They used to take them all the way down to London, sometimes beyond. The drovers would come back by boat sometimes to Wales. Amazingly, the dogs used to find their own way home, and they used to stay at hostelries that the drovers had paid for on the way down. But we're heading off to Barmouth now. Which way is that?
Yes, we are. Looking at the map, it's this way on this track here,
Okey-doke.
into the setting sun.
That's nice. Where are we on the map?
We're there.
Oh yeah, that's it, Brill.
Well, we're getting close to Barmouth now, and we're walking through some really ancient oak woodland. The oak woodland along the west coast of Wales is of European importance for conservation. The trees are very, very old.
Amazingly, this is an oak tree. This silver bark, it's absolutely fantastic. The oak is a quintessential British tree. It's the home to 500 species of insects. Added to that, the bats and the birds and the mosses and the lichens that use this tree. It's a pretty busy wildlife home.
They say an oak tree spends 200 years growing, 200 years living, and it takes 200 years to die.
Come on, not far to Barmouth now. And it's just starting to rain. We're walking up to the panorama viewpoint now, just outside Barmouth. If you want just a short walk with great views, there's a car park not too far away. Hello, do you mind if we have a look?
Fine.
You must get walkers asking you this all the time. So lovely.
That's fabulous.
Is it one of your favourite views, or you must be spoilt for choice around here?
Yes, it is one of my favourite views. Creggennan, which is up there, the two lakes are very nice too.
You're obviously a professional artist, are you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So have you got a studio where we could perhaps come and have a look?
Oh, well, I live over there, down at the bottom of the estuary, in the terrace there, and I've got my pictures up on display.
Oh, lovely.
I had a little exhibition in the Barbican in London.
Wow.
That was when I was living in Kent.
We both dabble a bit, but not to the standard.
No.
We both like drawing.
Oh, that's lovely, that bit of pencil on there. It gives it sort of light. It looks like there's a patch of sunlight there.
Well, there's quite a lot of more work to be done on this one, really. But, it was sort of...
It's beautiful.
Oh, well, we'll leave you to get on.
Thank you.
But very nice to meet you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye. Ordnance survey maps can be very handy in the town as well as the countryside, because we've discovered parts of Old Barmouth that you can't get to by car. We've walked down a very steep cliffside through the old part where the cottages are very quaint.
It's so much better just to walk through the village, isn't it, rather than drive through it.
Yeah.
We'd never have known
No.
it existed, would we? So
No.
It's fabulous, isn't it?
Come on then.
When the railway arrived at Barmouth, its days as an important port for shipping were over. But fortunately, Victorian tourism brought renewed prosperity to the town.
It still is an important place for boating, and it's the start of the annual Three Peaks race, where teams compete and sail, cycle and climb their way to the highest summits of Wales, England and Scotland.
There's also a magnificent sculpture on the seafront called the Last Hall, which is carved from Carrara marble, salvaged from a very important wreck site off the Welsh coast.
Exploring the countryside has never been easier. When you walk, you look at the world in a totally different way and you really feel part of the landscape.
There's no traffic jams here. It's quality time of the very best in our busy lives.
Enjoyed our walk along the river now that as much as we have.
It's the end of the walk, but it's not the end of the journey.
So please join us next time when we'll take you on another adventure off the beaten track.
And I fancy a paddle.
Come on.